to kind of develop to a point where you'll not have any competitive advantage anymore.
Yeah, and definitely would your platform also support stable coins, because we see stable coins being developed. I just want to reconfirm, because you covered that point, but stable coins being introduced by the central banks. So would your technology be compatible with those?
Yes, and again, coming back to the hybrid blockchain point, that that I explained in the diagram, that the other circle, right? These are all the legacy. These are all the systems and networks that exist right now or would continue to exist. So if there's a stable coin network deployed by a central bank, then we can actually connect to that. We can take confirmations from those transactions and reflect it on the XDC network. So it's very compatible.
Okay.
Can I?
Yes, Eric.
Thank you, both of you, indeed, for presentation. In the meantime, we have at least two questions I would like you to cover, Andre. The first one is quite straightforward. Somebody asks, what is the DNI initiative, by the way, which will also be discussed in Vienna at our annual meeting. But please, Andre, can you tell us a little bit more about DNI?
So the DNI initiative is an industry initiative called Digital Negotiable Instruments. The purpose is definitely for alternative funders as well as incumbent institutions, banks, to digitize bills of exchange and promissory notes. Often those instruments are required to exist on paper, and the paper is actually an issue for SMEs and sometimes also used by large corporates. It is often used as a collateral for financing, and basically if it were based on technology rather than paper, it would ease financing, but of course it's all about digitizing those instruments. Now, once the instrument is originated by a platform using a digital negotiable instrument, such as what this initiative has introduced, which is also using blockchain technology to track the life cycle of the asset, then with XinFin and TradeFinex, there is an opportunity to tokenize it and to get to pass it on to a funder via the blockchain capability of XinFin. Atul, is that correct?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay.
But in any case, DNI is an initiative from the banks through primarily ITFA, I believe, Andre, that's correct. And Sean Edwards has agreed to come and talk at our WOA convention in Vienna in October about this DNI initiative as well. Inshallah, if we can organize our meeting, which we still plan to do, by the way, but we'll see how things evolve. One more question from Nicolas Henrion, which I believe is a very interesting one. He thanks the presentation, but he asks if there's an index to track or to benchmark the performance of these assets. Maybe Atul, that's something for you?
Yes, so the good thing about the assets once you tokenize them is most of the data that's relevant for you to track them is already there on the public network. In fact, we do have an exchange interface that maybe you could, it would take obviously longer right now, but maybe you can share URL of it, that you can track the key data and performance indicators. You can do price discovery in much more better way for these assets when they are tokenized versus in a more legacy environment and a closed loop environment.
Yeah, there are also specialized index providers that will consider certain digital assets in their tracking, and that concentrate strictly on index, on building the index and running the index. One of those is Vinter Capital in the Nordics, based in Sweden. I don't know of any others from my research so far, but Vinter Capital is definitely one, and indeed they will run multiple assets indexes for those assets, sometimes on single asset or a group of assets.
We have time for two more questions, if you agree. Thank you. We have one person asking, considering the challenges with COVID-19 and the impact on global trade, how has the implementation of asset tokenization and blockchain been impacted in the short and medium term? I don't know, Atul, if you can also take that question.
Yes, I'll be in fact very excited to answer that. So what's happening obviously in the COVID world and lockdown everywhere is unfortunate. People are losing jobs and all that. But we as a network, because people have realized earlier people didn't take it seriously, but we as a network have actually scaled up almost 8 times in our transactions. So people have started to believe that this is the time for this is more apt right now, and that's the reason why there's a lot more adoption, much in a much faster way.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question is not surprisingly, because when I looked at the list of attendees of today's web meetings, quite a lot of interest from the credit insurance world, which is wonderful. And they ask, how does credit insurance come into the platform fundings? So good question, I think. Atul, can you also take that? Or André?
Yeah, so the simplest way to make it work, and again, I wouldn't talk about the future implementations of CBDCs or something, but this is done in a DeFi environment, decentralized finance environment, existing in a existing blockchain ecosystem world. What you do is you have a way for, so currently let's say USDC, which is a tokenized US dollar, which is managed by a FinCEN regulated or New York NYDFS regulated fund, and those are the assets or US dollar in token form that you can load as a collateral for insurance if there was a default to happen. So what then happens is if the rules or terms for the default ought to be invoked or to be triggered, then you would always have access to this liquid capital that already exists in the token form. So it's much easier and effective to implement than it thinks it is.
Also, the funding platforms are, some of them at least, working certainly with credit insurers. I think the credit insurance function is critical across the board. When those assets are aggregated into the funding platforms, often the challenge, not only in the B2B space, but also in the corporate to bank space, is to get credit insurance first, because the credit insurance for some liquidity funders, for liquidity providers, is critical. So some funders, depending on, of course, the yield they expect and their investment policies, will require credit insurance. So if there is one party that will definitely benefit from all those developments, in my humble view, it's definitely not only the corporates who get more funding capability, more sources of funds, but also the credit insurers who are not only helping the corporates directly, but also helping the banks as originators and helping also the institutional investors as funders in this space. So definitely a key market and a key function that I can only see expanding in the future.
Thank you. We are very much running out of time. We are almost 1 hour. Maybe one last word also about the future, and that's then the world of open account future. And I'm using this 30 seconds maybe to make some publicity for a very new initiative that André Casterman and World of Open Account are taking. Maybe André, you can say something about the new learning lab that we plan to build together with you on alternative finance?
Yes, definitely. We see this market evolving rapidly, not only from a technology point of view, but in terms of new entrants as well. From my experience, those advanced technologies, such as what we've presented today with XinFin and TradeFinex, are important not only for the large banks, but also for the new entrants. Often the new entrants are faster at adopting new technologies than incumbents. But of course, such technologies are there for both types of parties. We want, through the Learning Lab on Alternative Finance, to help all of those players, not only the originators, but also the technology providers, as well as the credit insurers, understand how the market is evolving. And again, not only from a technology point of view, but also from a market trend point of view, new types of originators, new types of banks. We will be surprised how financing will expand in ways we could not predict. And this is those market trends we want to track through the alternative finance. We could have called it alternative finance and alternative technologies, but we really want to have a broad perspective on how trade financing will happen, focusing primarily on the SME mid-cap market space, where those new entrants can be identified. So very interesting indeed to start with XinFin today as an alternative technology to help this market. We will hear more about them, but also more about new originators entering the market. And as I said, it's beneficial not only for the corporates, but also for those who are keen to take risks, credit insurers, but also keen to provide liquidity, such as those funders, non-bank funders, for instance.
Thank you indeed, André, and thank you for having taken this initiative. And you will all stay tuned. I would say you will see in the coming weeks more information coming out from World of Open Account with the launch of this new Alternative Finance Learning Lab with new initiatives, new activities, new webinars, and so on. And definitely also we hope to have a panel at our convention in Vienna in October, 5 and 6 of October. Everything is up and running. We have the full support from Raiffeisen International Bank. We have their auditorium for the meeting that is perfectly under control. We have a dinner place, which is also perfectly under control. Everything needs to evolve well as it is going now in the coming months. For the moment, a lot of people are still hesitant. Please do let us know as soon as possible whether you're interested or not in joining us in Vienna. I do understand it's not always easy these days, but we hope by the end of August to have a clear picture whether we can or we can't organize. In any case, the plan is to do it now, and you don't run any risks if you sign up. Because if we, for whatever reason, COVID related, we cannot organize the meeting, you will of course be completely reimbursed should you have paid anything. So that's for some information about the WOA convention. I would only like to terminate or to finish this interesting meeting by thanking Atul and Ritesh very much for your contribution. André, once again, for your wonderful contribution. Thank you very much. And I'm sure there will be more in the coming weeks from you.